We are live. Welcome to a special episode of In the Know, where we are discussing the best team in the Western Conference, perhaps the best team in the league, perhaps the best team in all of history in the universe and space-time continuum. Mason Ginsberg, what is it like being a blogger, reporter, tweeter, podcaster for the first seed in the Western Conference? Have you ever been able to say that at any significant portion of your I guess Pelicans coverage career?
No, sadly. Like they were what? Like the year after the year after the most recent playoff series, they were I think they started 4-0, and that was cool. And then like that was the AD trade season. So all the shit hit the fan. But no, I mean it's been like I was in college when the Pelicans were good with he who shall not be named, and I'm sure will be named in this podcast. But
That person.
yeah, that person. But yeah, it's fun times right now, and I don't fault anybody for enjoying it. You know, it's not that hasn't been a typical thing for our team. So I'm having a blast. How about you?
I don't know what to do with myself. I don't know if I should go fight on Twitter or should celebrate. Like people like, oh, act like you've been there. First of all, that's the dumbest thing I've heard in my life. One, never act like you've been here. Any kind of joy you can get out of your life, you should celebrate it to the
Yeah.
max because you don't know what's gonna happen, right? Two, I haven't been here. How you expect me to know how to act?
Nope. Not once.
So
I mean,
forgive me if I'm finding myself. But honestly, I don't care so much so about what others have to say on that. I'm just very happy that we are in this situation discussing a very good basketball
yeah.
team. And we have a lot to run through regarding that basketball team. But let's start with the first and foremost topic. Player of the week, Zion Williamson, 33 points a game, 70% from the field, which is absolutely absurd. Mr. Apex Predator himself. What have you to say about his performance over this past week? And not just this past week, they've won 7 straight. So, yeah, they haven't lost a game in a minute.
Yeah. I mean, it was. Look, he had a really good case to win it the week before. He was the only undefeated team of those guys. I mean, Booker and AD and Zion were the three tied top candidates the prior week, and they gave it to AD. Numbers are better, I guess. The record wasn't, but man, he's been incredible. You can't say enough. He's a one man wrecking crew. The guy. It's just a joy to watch. I mean, he's finally coming into his own. I think you could see there's a little bit of rust to start the year, obviously so. But I think the most exciting part to me, beyond just all the breathtaking plays, the minutes. He's playing a ton of minutes, and he's handling it. Like all these questions about his weight and his stamina, his overall health and nutrition and whatever you want to call it. He's on the floor. He is playing, and he's playing so long. Like even earlier in the season, he was playing more shorter bursts, kind of like when they were easing him back in from injury. That's not the case anymore. He's playing very long stretches now and handling it with ease almost. It seems like so that's what I'm most excited about is his stamina, his conditioning, and it's back. It's better than ever actually.
He's finding a way to dig deep on the defensive end as well. There's moments where Willie Green simply cannot take him off the floor. He'll take him off for a minute. The other team goes in a run. It's like, actually, I was planning on subbing you in 2 minutes from now, but you got to get back in there because we need you out there. And it's been unbelievable to see because I think what's we touched upon it the last podcast. We talked about the hierarchy forming, the fact that he's had to earn it a little bit, but I think there's a hierarchy forming, not just within this team, but like you can sort of see this player burgeoning, blossoming, let's use that word instead, into one of the league's best players. And I think everybody is taking notice. Everyone around the league is watching and seeing what is happening with the New Orleans Pelicans, Willie Green, Zion Williamson, what the front office has been able to do, the way they've extended their vets. Everybody is watching. And pretty soon, this is going to be a team that others look at and want to be a part of, if not already. Players talk, and players are good friends, and words travel. And in the NBA, good vibes and good times don't last very long for a lot of teams. And there's players on other teams right now who are perhaps not where they want to be. The Wizards have lost 9 of their last 10. 9 of their last 10. The Raptors are in a pretty miserable place. Obviously, the Lakers bottom of the standings, with respect to where they are. A lot of upheaval in the league, and there's a lot of chaos. Obviously, the season's still young, but people are taking note of the New Orleans Pelicans. And I'm not going to say like Zion's put them on the map, right? Because this is a team that put in the work last year, made themselves known by like earning that playoff spot, and all of that. That was a time where you saw an outpouring of support for Willie Green from the players. And a lot of players get on Twitter and talk about how this is the type of coach that they want to play for, and that's the type of coach that they can rally behind. Well, what do you think they're saying now? And what do you think they're I can't hear you anymore. You're on mute, buddy.
It's just like a work call. I said, what I was saying is that you know what the players are saying now, and you specifically heard it. You got that. You talked to Larry about it. I mean, you basically, what was a comment that like, if Willie's out there, the other side's wrong. I mean, like that's all you got to know about Willie Green.
Yeah, and it's unbelievable to watch happen in real time. And man, I mean, what I think a lot of us, and I think the players have said it. We're running out of words to sort of describe what Zion's doing, and you never want to get to the point where you take that stuff for granted, because that not only does a player like Zion come around once in his generation, but it's a great privilege to be able to watch all of this unfold in front of us and go through that growth with him. And I think what we've seen from him this year, the fact, in these last 7 games, he's had moments where he senses blood, and he sees the other team either like rushing to make a momentum play, or he sees the game balance like teetering, and he goes and snatches that game and completely turns it on his head in a series of like 2 or 3 plays. And how he's invested himself in terms of like the emotions he's showing, how he's like rallying the crowd. He's firing that dunk. Let's talk about that dunk, right? That was an outpouring of 570 days of frustration plus more, all into one moment, that culmination of all of that. And yeah, man, I think it's a beautiful thing to see.
Yeah, I mean, and the way he's doing it too. I will like, I probably made some mistakes in some of my comments around the closing lineups against the Suns these last 2 games, and like, I need to like just throw everything like to the wind when Zion's playing basketball, because I was like, well, they could create more spacing for Zion on the floor here to close out this game and still be just as formidable defensively, and like it doesn't matter. like you've got these guys in the, like, Larry Nance and Najee Marshall have been playing fantastically, but neither of them are consistent 3-point shooters, and defenses are just going to let them shoot. And it didn't matter. Like, Zion just did what Zion does, and they were swarming defensively, and they didn't need that much. Take it all the way back to the Steven Adams days. Zion was still able to just score at will, even with him on the floor, and it's just continuing. I mean, like, as teams get more tape on Zion and able to kind of scheme for him more, it just, again, it doesn't matter. He's a cheat code. He does whatever he wants. And it's good to see him starting to get a little bit more benefit. I feel like the officiating's been better over the last couple of weeks too, and that's helped, obviously. But there's just nothing you can throw at him to just consistently slow him down.
Yeah, a player who is playing at this level is a very forgiving cushion. You can do a lot of things, and they are going to carry you despite what you're doing. And what I think what the Pelicans are doing is the opposite of that. They're not stumbling into success here. Everything has been purposeful. Everything has been through design. Yeah, we still complain about some Devontae Graham minutes, but they're winning. They've won 7 straight games, and if you're able to play all of your players and still win, we got no right to complain about that. But
that's
with
the vibes.
regards,
That's how you keep the positive vibes. The guys playing
yeah,
like that.
and with regards to what they've done to build with Zion, to build Zion himself, and to kind of fill in the pieces around it, they've done it the right way. And the JJ Redick podcast, he had a little segment. He had a really nice segment. If you haven't checked it out, do go listen to him talking about Zion and the Pels and in the last few dunks. But he basically, in summary, he talked about like Stan Van Gundy and now Willie Green have both not stumbled, but they have discovered that Point Zion is this force that changes everything. And JJ goes to talk about how he was the beneficiary of Point Zion, especially the two-man game that they used to run, where they used to set screens for him, and it would just be annihilation at the rim. And then he gave a series of stats, like like in the first 15 games, Zion only brought the ball up like 100 times. In the last 7 games, he's done it like 170 times. Yeah. And, they talk about like how the screen and roll usage has increased for Zion and all that kind of stuff. And we've kept track of that stuff too, right? Like I look at the drives per game and over the last like 9 or so games, he is like what, 4th or 5th or 6th in drives per game and 3rd in the number of points generated through those drives. He is becoming, and they are using him like a lead guard. And when they have an advantage creator of that level, well, what you really need is dudes who are gonna like clamp defensively because you got to have units that can get stops, but B, you got to have versatile players who can dribble, pass, shoot. And the shoot part is last, right? Because Zion is going to put so much pressure at the rim no matter what. That he's going to get there and his efficiency is probably going to remain around the same. But what players have to be able to do is create cracks or take the cracks that he creates and like fully explode them and have the walls of the dam come down. And so like when you look at a player like Najee Marshall, who's just been absolutely excellent in the last few games, when Zion's breaking the defense, and they kick out to Najee, he's been shooting at an adequate level. Like he's made enough threes to where what is what you need, out of the wings around him. But 2, when those closeouts are coming, or even if they're not coming, you're running in transition, or when that kick out happens, he can put the ball on the floor, get to the rim, get to the foul line. Zion's gonna put you halfway to the bonus or in the bonus by himself anyway. Can the rest of your players take advantage of that and carry you the rest of the way? And Najee's played this role. Larry's played his role. Dyson has played his role. Jose's has had huge moments, and now CJ is slowly coming along. And in the middle of that, Jonas has had his ups and downs too. So it's not just one player each night. It's all of these players figuring out where they fit in with regards to this, but also just figuring out a way to not just fit in, but truly like maximize their impact based off of the singular gravitational pull this guy has.
Yeah. And I think it again, I can't speak highly enough about the guys kind of towards the end of the rotation and how they played this year and just remained ready. And Najee and Devontae Graham. It's been very impressive because Willie Green has been able to kind of ride the hot hand. And when I say hot hand, I obviously don't mean like the best players on the team, but like those kind of 5th, 6th, 7th men who have been asked to step up and play a bigger role with Herb out and with BI out. Willie's been able to go with the guy who's on the floor producing. And last season, I feel like he did that sometimes almost to a fault and rode the hot hand from some of the rotation players, kind of got a little bit down the rotation, and it would come back to bite you because some of those players just weren't, it wasn't sustainable. But this year it has been. I mean, Trey Murphy had a rough couple of games. Willie Green stuck with Najee, and Najee rewarded him, and he was excellent. And so I think, credit to the coaching staff, to Willie Green. That's how you kind of create this culture and create this trust. And like, myself specifically, I've called out concerns I've had about, his decisions to stick with certain guys or not make subs that seem to optimize the rotation or the roster or whoever's on the floor at the time. But he's making the right decisions. Like the players who are he's rewarding players for playing quality basketball, for playing high IQ, smart basketball on both sides. And he should continue to do that. I mean, I think the Pelicans have proven that the players down the roster, down the rotation have proven that they're they're playing the right way. They know their roles and they're maximizing their roles, and it's paying dividends across. You can see from the winning streak.
You talk about like optimizing stuff. Literally in the beginning of the season, there were several games, right? They had end of quarter, end of half moments where there was a dead ball and they were on offense. They could have subbed shooters in and they didn't, right? They weren't making any of those situational substitutions. And now Willie Green, it seems to be hunting those moments any opportunity he gets. This past end of the game, they had a moment. Not the Raptors. The Suns were at the free throw line, and he subbed in a rebounder. He subbed in Jonas there, and it's like, well, like we literally complained about that 2 months ago, and it's like, yo, you probably could have subbed rebounders in those type of situations. You just don't know if they miss or not. You gotta eke every advantage that you have, and they've been doing that. Every single process complaint that I had has been largely addressed, right? I don't have any issues with the process anymore, and man, I gotta figure out what they're gonna do now and when they start bringing some of these players back. But before we get into that, I want to eat crow. I want to eat crow on Najee Marshall. I really thought, I thought he wasn't going to be a part of the rotation this year. I thought any minutes invested in him over Dyson would be a waste of time. I was like, he's not going to be a part of the future. He's someone that's probably going to like price himself out of the Pelicans contract range if he doesn't remain a minimum level player. And why invest in that guy when you have the 8th pick who's able to do a lot of those same things? And to Mr. Najee Marshall, I apologize. You have been absolutely tremendous this year. Man, the way he's played defense, the way he's been a secondary playmaker at times. You know, he's had a number of games where he's recorded 5-6 assists. Just being able to plug him in and have him do whatever it is you need him to do, whether it's to go pick a fight with the with the opponent, but really to like defend some of their best players, make life difficult for them, provide those energy plays. Him and Jose, the way this team looks at those two guys as their teammates for energy, just type of characters that they are. I was really wrong about the level of impact that he could have, both on the court and off the court, and I wouldn't want those two guys going anywhere. Though, like they are the very fabric of what defines the type of team this is. And the rest of the team, the stars, really feed off of that. And you need those kind of guys on your team, and those are the type of players that we have long searched. We've searched for all kinds of players. Let's be honest. This has been not a good basketball club for a long time. But in the brief moments that it was a good basketball club, those were those dogs. Yeah, just they didn't have them. Like the only person that kind of like came close to that mentality was Rondo, right? Yeah. They had Rondo who was picking fights with Zach Collins in the playoff series. And not standing for any of this stuff. But when you look at instigators, when you look at like big time energy guys, like who was it? Solomon Hill kind of counted, kind of.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like he was more of a quiet leader a lot of times, but yeah, it's hard to think of one. I don't have a good answer. I mean, the first time we tried to find a guy like that, it blew up in our faces. Like, what was it? Who was it? In 2008, the mid-level exception signing.
2008, James Posey.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking of. James Posey. See, like that's how far back I'm going here to try to figure this out. Like, I don't know, Bonzi
Who's that
Wells.
Bird, Rel?
Like Bonzi Wells, I don't know. No
yeah,
idea.
It's tough.
Those are just name drops for the guy who said that we're all became fans 6 months ago of the team. I just wanted to prove a point there. But anyway,
fuck that guy. Fuck that guy. Anyways, bringing the conversation back to the players, and so they announced Herb Jones is going to be available for this Utah game coming up, and what an amazing luxury it is to have one of the league's best defenders be coming back to your team after you've won 7 straight. You've had the league's best defense in that stretch, I believe. They're a top 3 defense overall for the season. And now you're getting one of the league's best defenders back. And if I'm Willie Green, boy, I am happy I don't have to make the decision on how to get everybody these minutes because of how well Najee's been playing, how well Dyson's been playing.
Tough.
Like, do you I think you have to because Herb's been the starter. Do you just do you just start Herb and then bring Dyson off the bench where you can do it, or do you just stick with what's been rolling in this this win streak where it's been the Dyson, CJ, Trey, Zion lineups, and then you kind of bring in Herb off the bench? I don't know. I don't know what I would do.
Yeah, I it's nice to feel like either option is a good option, right? I feel like so many times because of the Pelicans not being as good, there was a clear right answer, and if there or to us, and if the right answer was not, the one that was actually out there, it was just like raising hell about it and just bitching and complaining. But whatever he wants to do at this point, you won 7 straight, you're making all the right calls, pulling all the right strings. Look, these guys are going to all play in different situations anyway throughout the course of the game. There's going to be very different lineups that throw in. We've already we've seen over the last couple of games that the spacing element is not. It's going to be important throughout. I don't want to throw it away. Like, spacing is going to be important, especially as this team plays more games that matter. But right now, Zion's just wrecking defenses regardless, and so I don't really care if it's not that Dyson's a floor spacer. I don't care if it's Dyson or Herb. I want to do whatever is best for. Willie thinks is best for this team. That's really it. They're both going to play, and yeah, the Najee thing is stressful to me because that he deserves minutes. He's got to play. I mean, I don't know what you do. Maybe you just you got to blow out teams and then let the fourth quarter be. It's like the old Golden State Warriors team. Just let the fourth quarter be there.
I think the first place to start with minutes is I think you do have to reduce those Devontae minutes, and he's been playing well. That's another guy that's been playing well. Like I said, the Pelicans on court net rating with all of their rotation players is positive. Like, they are not losing those minutes. Yes, some units are better than others. Some units are utterly dominant, but you can't play those units 48 minutes a game. And if you can get away with playing, 11 deep, 12 deep, and not losing those minutes, why not?
Yeah. Why not? I mean, we were all pretty convinced that where the Pelicans were going to separate themselves from the Suns on Sunday was the bench because Booker was out, and so that the Suns are just running out of talent compared to the Pelicans' more deeper team. But I feel like where they get back into it was when in the Alvarado Devontae Graham minutes, right? And that's one of those things that the very few things that kind of feel self-inflicted that you don't have to do, and that's kind of to your point. I think he's got to be the first one you look at to take to see his minutes reduced, just because they've got to come from somewhere.
Yeah, and I think it's really cool this year. Last year, Herb Jones was their only stopper and only playable. Like Najee had his moments last season, but it was more hit and miss than it was this season. The level of consistency that Najee displayed this season has been particularly impressive. And I think what helps Najee in these situations is being able to play with a guy like Zion, is being able to have a much more talented unit around him, so where he doesn't have to have chaotic energy and unstructured offense where he's tasked with lifting some of those units, right? And that's helped a lot of players. That's helped a lot of players find their roles and have big nights, right? Like Jose's obviously had the 38 point night against the Nuggets, but he gave the Suns 20 points that first matchup or whatever. Just driving down the middle of the lane, feeding off of Zion's gravity and the tension that he draws. It's been awesome to see. And so yeah, man, the fact that they don't have to play Herb 36 minutes a game, 38 minutes a game, 40 minutes a game to solely and be the only person who's capable of defending the best player is good for Herb's longevity, and I think it'll I think it means well or bodes well for his offensive productivity, because we've seen times where Drew was tasked with those kind of responsibilities and his offense just craters when he has to expend that amount of energy on defense. And you're still seeing it in Milwaukee. He has nights where it's like when Middleton's been out and he's just chasing some of these guys around, like he'll put up a 3 for 14 type of night, and you're like, all right, Drew, like I guess you gave us 6 blocks and 7 steals, so it's worth it. But yeah, I mean, I'm excited. I think Herb's gonna find more of a shot as those kind of responsibilities are eased or less.
Yeah. I think you can make an argument that Herb maybe a little bit of regression offensively this on both sides of the ball potentially. I think he was really picking it up a notch right before he went out with his injury in the last 3 or 4 games. So he was getting back to that Herb Jones we knew. But offensively, I feel like the opportunities weren't coming, and he was kind of relegated to. I feel like he was cutting more towards the second half of last year and kind of end up more as like a spot up guy purely this season. But I would love to see what as you bring him back into the fold. Willie trying to find ways to maximize his offensive role and kind of let him get more comfortable there, because I don't have any concerns over Herb Jones' defense at this point. He may have peaks and valleys, but he is that guy. There's no one that works harder in this team. But would love to see him start getting more comfortable on the offensive end again.
I completely agree with Andrew here. I think I tweeted something about this. I was like, you have to make a deep playoff run in the West. You're gonna have to go through Bane. You're gonna have to go to Luka. You're gonna have to go through Steph. You're gonna have to go through Booker, CP. All of these dynamic perimeter players. Perhaps you see Damian Lillard, Jeremy Grant, those guys. Perhaps you're seeing Anthony Edwards. There's a lot of perimeter talent in the West, and it's nice to be able to have 48 minutes of players you can just throw at them, making their life hell and give them different looks. You got to be scheme versatile. And that's something like, Larry Nance was talking about in the post game, like, what they did with the Suns is you give them one look, it's not working. You shift to another look, you keep them guessing. Willie Green has done a really good job of sprinkling in zone every once in a while to keep teams off the rhythm. And obviously now when they go to end of games, they're switching a lot, right? And they're playing those small lineups, and to continually have opponents think, like, okay, how do we beat this coverage, or which defenders are we seeing here? What are we doing here? That's taxing, not over a game, and that's going to be taxing over a 7-game series. Imagine you're in a brutal 7-game series, and it's Herb freaking Jones in your pocket, in your jersey, and then okay, Herb checks out. Who's waiting for you? Dyson Daniels, Najee Marshall. Oh, I switched off. Maybe let me call ISO the smallest guy on the court, Jose. Oh shit. Okay, like what? It's absolutely crazy. And then you finally beat one of these dudes off the dribble. There's Larry waiting at the rim, and
or Zion coming weak side. Just
And Zion's been such a big part of how good their defense has been. Yeah. Such a big part, and I still think we are not at the stage where we are crediting Zion for his improvements on that end. Everyone's talking about him as an MVP level player. Everyone's talking about, the player of the week, how good he's been offensively. We are still not giving him the appropriate credit that he deserves for making an impact on that end and his focus on that end. And I think a lot of it has to do with the fact that people just can't get over the bubble, man. People can't, those memories are seared in their head. And, even the first couple games, like we've talked about constantly, like the low moments of his defensive, rotations or abilities, they really stand out, or they really have stood out in the past. But like when he's doing well, when he's rotating, when he's the low man, tagging and recovering back to his people, or performing those X outs, or, just now what he's doing is he's hunting for moments where he recognizes player tendencies. He does, like, okay, like this is how y'all ran this play earlier this game. Oh, I know what you're about to do. Let me come steal the ball. Like I know where y'all are going. And so he's being a defensive event generator. Someone, I think it was Jeremy who tweeted out that Zion's been second in the team in deflections behind Jose over this, like the past 10 games or so. The Pelicans are second in the league overall in deflections. Like, so his activity has ramped up to such a high level that he is genuinely a plus defender. Now, can you put him on the league's best players and have them, have him defend those guys for 36 minutes a game? Probably not. Can you build a sustainable defense with him in it? I think a lot of those questions now are being answered in a big way that we were hoping for, and that, in a way that where you can start having those championship level conversations, because that was always the rub. can you build a defense with him in it that is good enough to win you a championship? And to me, those questions have been answered.
Yeah, I think that the concern dating back was, I feel like it was less about Zion individually and more about the combination of Zion and BI, because both were just not like, back in the bubble or a couple of years ago, both looked like not just like below average, but just like not barely, like not even passable defenders. Now we have a year's worth of evidence last year that you can, BI has taken a step up defensively. He's using his length better. He's not, I mean, he's like kind of, he's not an elite defender by any stretch, but he could be part of good team defenses. And now you're seeing the same thing with Zion. Yeah. I think that I almost forgot about that kind of big foundational question, because the team's been, I guess the CJ trade has kind of alleviated some concerns because of how potent the offense was going to be. And kind of like, okay, well, the defense might not be good, but as long as the offense clicks and the defense isn't like the bottom of the league, you should be okay. But now it's, I think you can pretty much throw out any of those concerns that you had or people had about BI and Zion on defense with those two guys not being sustainable. I mean, do I think that this team finishes top 5 in the NBA in defense this year? I'm still not there yet, but I think the team is certainly can be good enough to be a real threat to be a contender.
9 deflections this weekend in these 2 games. 9. That's pretty wild. And we know what Larry was doing. We know Larry was all over his place with those Inspector Gadget arms and, in every single passing lane. That's nuts. And I think you're right with the combination with him and BI and even CJ. They've managed to put out good defensive units with those 3. And Jonas, let's not forget Jonas. Every single player that they have, and you look at their on-court defensive rating, that defensive rating still ranks like if that was like the team's rating overall, it would still be like a top 5 defense in the league, which is nuts. Even their worst players, they've had good defensive units, and none of them are playing truly terrible on defense, which is wild. And that's what makes it so exciting when you have the Herb Jones, the Dyson Daniels, the Najee Marshalls, the Larry Nances to fill in. But let's talk about, since we're on the defensive topic, I want to talk about my boy Dyson Daniels. He has really captured the attention of many across the league in the media space and hopefully player space, because they know he's coming for him. If Dyson Daniels is lined up across from you wearing number 11, it's not going to be an easy night. Yeah. You're going to have to work for it.
One quick stat before you go to Dyson. I just looking on Clean the Glass. So CJ Zion lineups. So any lineup with those 2 guys in it, you probably would have looked at that before the season and said that lineup better score a fuck ton, because the defense is not going to be good. 96th percentile defensive rating so far this season, 872 possessions, 105.3 defensive rating. Just like, I mean, I'm blown away. Like it's incredible. I mean, like there's room for regression there and still being better, way better than we all expected.
And people also, we talk about people who've not received the credit that they deserve. People have been quick to call out CJ for his offensive struggles. He's been sick, he's been hurt, in and out the lineup. I get it. I trust his body of work in his career to believe that he will find his way offensively. He will find a way to catch his rhythm and be who he has been his whole career. What's been the most surprising to me, and maybe again this is something that's impacting his offense, is he has been rock solid defensively. You cannot really look at, when's the last time you saw a play and you're like, oh, CJ got bullied there, or CJ was out of place there. Like, guys aren't really going at him. They're not trying to isolate him, and he's doing a really good job of playing within the scheme on what he has to do. So whether he has to go over screens to push his guard towards the big, whether he has to go under him, whether he has to be the low man, you tell me how many situations that you can rattle off the top of your head and you'd be like, man, CJ killed them defensively this unit. Like, CJ, they were picking on CJ the whole night.
I mean, I can't. The possessions, like the lineups I think of, and then situations I think of are lineups where he's joined by another small, him and even though Jose's a good defender, him and Jose Lyons might struggle defensively. Him and Devontae might struggle defensively. But and look, that's what he played with for years in Portland too. And no disrespect to him and Dame, but like those guys were incendiary on offense. But it was routinely challenging to put a plus defense together with those two guys playing together. And so the Pelicans have created a situation where they can have good defenses, and CJ's like the rest of the roster, CJ's buying in.
Yeah, since you mentioned Portland, I was gonna go look at their team's defensive rating. Yeah, they're 23rd this year. They're 23rd in defense, still struggling. They got Josh Hart, they got Jeremy Grant, and whatever Nurkic is, they got him. Gary Payton's not played, right? Has he played?
No, still not yet.
No. I'm sure that'll probably help him. But 23rd, they've still struggled to put forth the defense. Here we are, CJ McCollum on the third best defense in the league, and at no point can you say that he's been a liability. But you brought me off topic. We're going to Dyson, man.
All right, let's go to Dyson.
We're going to Dyson. Okay, so I've had a lot to say about Dyson on Twitter. Since the draft, he's absolutely blown me away. With how good he has been. The buzz with him throughout the preseason was he's going to be ready to get minutes sooner than people anticipate. Like he's ready. Like people don't understand how physical he is. He's ready. And here we are. Dyson Daniels has been a starter in the midst of, one of the Pelicans' best winning streaks in franchise history. I don't know what the longest one is. I know they won 10 under Anthony Davis and crew when they made the playoffs, and after Boogie went down, there was 10 in a row there. But whatever that record is, Dyson Daniels has now been a part of this insane win streak, and the defense has been terrorizing when he's been on the court. They've asked him to step up and defend the best players in the league, the best opposing players that are lined up across from him, and he's done a tremendous job every single time at 19 years old. A lot of people don't really buy into like defensive advanced stats, and I'm skeptical of them myself, but anytime I can use them to push an agenda, I absolutely will. He's the fourth best in the league in defensive EPM, which is absolutely wild. Completely insane for a 19-year-old. And
you know second on the Pelicans, right?
It's Zion.
It's Zion. Yep.
It's Zion. I know who's second. I've been watching this every single day. It's Zion. And but yeah, and so like, we knew about the defense. Let's talk about the offense. Passing vision, the ability to process the floor, download what's going on in an instant, and make the right read. Reminds me of someone who used to play on the Pels. Any guesses who might that be?
What is he? Is it Lonzo? I was trying to think of something like some sort of like smart comment, but no, it's Lonzo.
Yeah. I mean, look, he has a lot of the same open court vision, a lot of the same connector vision. What separates Dyson from Lonzo is his complete lack of fear when attacking the rim. He puts his head down and gets there. He had 2 moments where he wanted to isolate Chris Paul, back him down, and get to the rim. He succeeded on one of them, didn't succeed on the other. But it was amazing to see. He has his footwork still needs to be cleaned up, in my opinion. And that's why it leads to like weird, wrong-footed layups or some like floaters that could probably be improved upon. But again, he's at right now, like I think I last checked, his like true shooting was like 58%, which for a guy who was supposed to be offensively inept and a project, that's fantastic.
Oh yeah.
That's like one of the most efficient rookies in the league right now. He's very low usage. He picks and chooses his spot. So don't get me wrong, he's not some kind of scoring machine, but he's not hurting you out there. He doesn't, the record doesn't scratch when the ball gets to him. You don't feel like he's going to make the wrong decision.
Yeah. I agree with you. I was wondering if you could bring up the offensive EPM for Dyson Daniels, though.
Oh no, we're not going to talk about that.
which is the inverse of the defense.
Like I said, we only use it to push agendas.
Look, the eye test. I'm with you. I think that I think that he's finding the right moments to impact the game. And I haven't felt like he's making the wrong decisions, that often. I feel like the negative, offensive EPM probably is more about like just the relative, skill sets of the rest of the players on the roster, and also just maybe apathy, or not in that, like, he knows when he shouldn't engage, and knows when the other players should kind of, take the lead. And he's not, going to get respect from defenses to shoot. And even though he is knocking them down. But I think, again, I don't watch him play offense and think he's lost. Right. And that's what's big. Yeah. That play was so fun. That play was so fun.
It's amazing. Amazing to see. I think part of the reason why the offense isn't, the offensive stats don't really favor him that well is because even in this stretch where he's starting and he's been a starter, the Pelicans have not gotten out to good starts. Those starting units with him, Trey, CJ, Jonas, and Zion, they've been mediocre offensively compared to the juggernaut they've been with other combinations, right? Like, it's not that they've been terrible. They've been fine, and then they've been like absolutely amazing. And so what the stats are looking at, it's like, okay, like, when he's on the court, the offense doesn't do quite as well as when he's off of the court, and which is absolutely fair. And I think part of that has been Jonas is in a little bit of a slump right now. He hasn't been himself. He's had a couple of tough matchups. CJ was ineffective. So yeah, it's been tough to have a completely new starting lineup, because with Dyson, Trey, CJ, Z, Jonas, like, those guys had never played before together. So you're not only playing together for the first time, you're starting against good teams. They've beaten good teams with this lineup. They've beaten Denver now. They've now beaten Phoenix twice, and so
maybe Dallas with just, the down the lineup players, and Dyson was a part of that game.
Right. And so, it's been a process, and they're figuring it out on the fly. And I expect there to be some positive regression coming on JV's play, on CJ's play. That's going to, like, the sample size on those Dyson starting units is still so small that you can have an 8-minute stretch where they make 4 threes in a row, and all of a sudden the offensive rating for that whole unit and every minute they've played is ballooned from mediocre to elite. So it's not something I'm terribly concerned about, and it's not something we need to be concerned about, because at some point, presumably, Brandon Ingram is going to play basketball again.
Yeah. Like, the most common lineup with that Dyson Daniels has been in is CJ, Dyson, Trey, Zion, and Jonas. There is no rational explanation that lineup wouldn't just be flames offensively, right? Like, he's playing with just, like, bucket getters. And it's a 30.
What are they shooting from three?
I don't know. I'm still looking at 4 factors, but they're it's a 31st percentile offensive rating. In 123 possessions. Like, you can't explain that besides small sample size. That's it. Like, that lineup should be incredible offensively.
Yeah, I would say they're, like, if I had to guess, they're shooting under 30% from three.
Right. Yeah.
And they're just a few made threes away from that being nutty. I really like this comment. The game from Jamarius, he says the game almost doesn't start.
Wait, you're right, by the way. Sorry. 0th percentile. Is that how you say it? 0th percentile shooting from 3-point range? 18.4% from 3.
That's what I'm saying. And that's with Trey and CJ in the lineup. Look. Regression is coming, and the league is in trouble when the Pelicans start hitting shots. I'm telling you, the league is going to be trouble. I listen to these podcasters who charge a lot of money for their premium podcast talk about how the Pelicans are fluky because of opponent 3-point shooting, and you can't trust in their defense and all that kind of stuff. They never give us the benefit of the doubt when we're talking about the Pelicans' own shooting, or when there's nights when Phoenix makes 22 threes and still loses the ball game. I don't want to hear it. Regression is coming. Anyways, Jamarius says the game almost doesn't start till Nazi and Jose get on the floor.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think at this point everyone's like, yeah, okay, we started. Okay, yeah, game's kind of close. When's Jose checking in? When's Nazi checking in?
And how crazy is that, man? Like this team is stacked with like scoring talent between, and I know Ingram's been hurt, but Bi, Zion, CJ, Jonas, and it's like, where's Jose? Where's Najee? Like that's how fun this team is.
It's wild because you just know like the bench is coming in to kick ass. Like someone like the game literally starts when those two get on the floor and something wild is about to happen within like 40 seconds of those guys, hitting the hardwood. And yeah, I know. Following up here with Andrews, it certainly doesn't start with a crowd till Jose gets in. He gets the people going. Yeah, it's kind of like the first half of the quarter, people are still trickling into the Smoothie King Center. They're buying their popcorns, their smoothies, or whatever they get them from the concessions. Their nachos with the pre-processed cheese and the 7 pieces of jalapenos that you might get on them.
Wow.
And then by about 6 minutes into the first quarter, everyone settled in, the lower bowls filled up, people have found their seats, Jose's checked in, and the crowd's going nuts. Like he's done something, whether he's like done his trademark steal, hit a crazy 3, drawn a charge, he's done something in that moment, and you're just like, yep, the show has begun.
Yeah, I mean, just at some point we got to shout out, and we've kind of done it lately. But if you look at these guys and like the draft, I mean, obviously the drafting's been great, but also, I mean, with Jose undrafted, Najee undrafted, right? And so like you've got these two guys. The amount of money the Pelicans are spending on just these bench guys who are just totally game changers is unbelievable, and they're getting such good bang for their buck productivity wise, and it's again good on the front office for being able to find talent this way. I mean, it allows you to make mistakes. It allows you to miss on like I think we can probably say that the at this point the Devontae Graham trade was not optimal, right? I mean, like that. But it hasn't hurt you, and one of the reasons it hasn't hurt you is because you're finding guys on minimum contracts like this who can go in and change the game, and so it's been huge.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's easy to look at this and be a party pooper and be like, oh, they're gonna have to pay the tax at some point. They can't keep all of these guys, and I think anybody who's going down that stretch right now, you know what? You have the right to do so. You can talk about that stuff, but I encourage folks at this moment to savor it.
Yeah,
take it all in. Front office will figure out what they need to do. If they need to pay the tax and then Ms. B has to cut the check, they'll figure it out. If some guys have to end up somewhere else, they'll figure it out. At this point, I believe they've earned our trust to make those decisions. And in this moment in time, with the Pelicans being 18-8, those aren't fruitful discussions to me, because that's talking about a future that has not come about yet. And that future may look very, very different should the Pelicans continue to win at this pace. I think that changes the outlook on many things.
Yeah, for sure.
So
Saints will have to pay a first round pick next year anyway, so they can spend that money on the tax. It's all
good. If they sell some of these second round picks coming up to pad Miss B's wallet here, then I would expect some tax stuff coming up soon. But I think the one thing I will say about the tax is like you do have to be a little bit careful about starting the repeater clock this season.
Yeah.
So if you make a trade this season that gets you into the tax, you have to be a little bit careful. But
I think there are enough ways around it that I'm not concerned.
I don't care.
Yeah,
I don't care. I'll let John Hollinger talk about that point till he's tired. Nate Duncan can talk about it. That's not when it becomes an issue, I will talk about it. When it prevents them from doing a move or paying someone, I will talk about it. And if they deserve criticism for it, they'll get it. If they deserve praise for it, they will get it. Right now, that's all hypothetical crap. Okay. I'm not here for it. What I am here for is asking you. We talked about this. We talked about this on the last podcast. I'm going to ask you again. the Pelicans are continuing to win. Do you explore an all-in type move to push your chips in and go for the ring this season?
Yeah, I feel like that was the response last
Okay.
time too.
Yeah, I just want to see if you're still, strongly.
On what planet would that interchange in the opposite direction
I
after
don't
the
know,
two games
man.
we
I don't
just
know.
watched?
I think there are people who see this team and be like, we don't need to. Let's just play this out. Let's see how this goes, and see what the natural end of this season is, and taking that data and make the decision. And I don't know if in that amount of time you just were so all in on this
Look.
group of guys and be like, fuck it, I'm riding with Jose and Najee and Herb Jones, and we're going to a parade on Canal Street in July.
This team's got just a surplus of assets right now, and they would be doing a disservice to themselves and their title chances if they didn't, think about certain moves. And so I am enjoying this in the moment, but this team is. I mean, you heard it on JJ Redick's podcast. He said he's confident that they're a top 3 team in the West, and he thinks that they can make the finals. And like more and more people are saying that. It's not just New Orleans, media. I mean, national folks are saying this, and you saw some of the analytics before the season. So I mean, this team was projected to win a bunch of games, just with the guys they had, and you're seeing it play out in real time now. And there's they've got a shot here. I mean, and so they've got to operate as such until something happens that should change that trajectory.
Yeah, I just want to comment on this. One, I hope those dudes get paid every penny they deserve.
Yeah.
So
hell yeah.
I can't stand here and be like they should take discounts. They're already getting paid the league minimum and far out producing that. So I hope they get paid every penny they deserve. But secondly, when have the Heat ever taken a hometown discount? Like Riley's given out some terrible ass contracts in his life. Look at Duncan Robinson just wasting away now.
My guess would be like the LeBron Wade Bosch team. They all took a little bit less money to play together, but that's what,
yeah,
but that's
baby. Like LeBron. Najee is LeBron. Jose is Wade. So Chris Bosh.
Gotta love it.
Nah, man. Y'all don't remember the Dion Waiters contract? The Heat have given out terrible contracts year after year after year. They're sitting on multiple terrible contracts right now, including Kyle Lowry and Duncan Robinson. They hardly have any assets to make any real improvements. I am strongly eyeing Bam Adebayo and hoping to pry that dude from their team at whatever cost it takes. Although, I don't think they're going to do that. The Heat will probably make some dumb is not the right word. The Heat will probably make some marginal move at the deadline for like Sadiq Bey or PJ Washington, and they'll probably win, a few games, and the Heat culture propaganda will pop up. Yes, Tyler Johnson and James Johnson, absolutely terrible contracts. They just have had terrible cap work for the last decade. Anyways, yeah, the Heat culture propaganda bullshit will pop up, and they'll fizzle out in the playoffs if they make it there, and will have no real direction or future as Jimmy Butler puts on 1,000 more miles on his busted knees. And Kyle Lowry also continues to age. That's my
damn, you went all in on the Heat there, man. Like it's coming to Mickey Harrison, but like, damn, that's
they haven't done anything to deserve my ire. I got that was a little out of character. I got carried away. I'm sorry.
You just really want Bam. Like that would be. I mean, that would be wild.
This is a really good question for me. Who would you prefer in a vacuum?
Bam, but it's. I mean, for this team, it's not. For this team, it's easy for me. Bam.
Is it?
Yes. It's a lot closer for your, for random team. Like, I don't know.
I think I go with Aiden. We're talking about it in a vacuum, so I'm not going to bring in the cost, even though I think Aiden would be cheaper to acquire than Bam. Cost-wise, he doesn't have that All-Star title. He doesn't have the All-NBA title. He doesn't have those accolades yet. It's
It's not like what happened over the summer is gone, right? I mean, like
right. So I think in a material world that is an important distinction. But since we're only talking about in a vacuum, the reason I'm going with Ayton is I think his efficiency at his usage is just so much better than Bam's, and he gives you. I genuinely think this team would be unguardable if they had Aiton's lob threat, roll threat, ability to finish in the paint and those that mid range jumper of his, and that's something I've done a complete 180 on since this summer. This summer I was very skeptical about maxing him, investing assets in a big, going into the tax, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And now, I see from a salary standpoint, Jonas, Devontae, Jackson works. Jonas, Devontae, Kyra works. So if I'm taking Jonas, upgrading him to Ayton, and then only, not getting rid of, that's not the right words, but, only including non-rotation players or end of rotation players to make that trade happen along with picks, then that's such an attractive option to me, even though that would put them in tax territory. If they do it, I think, I don't know, I'll have to run the numbers, but there's probably a way for them to do it this season and not hit the tax. But it's dicey. and I think it would involve finding a home for one of Kyra or Jackson, whoever's not included in that trade, and signing a bunch of, like, you'd sign EJ, you would sign some other, like,
you become buyout market. The Pelicans are going to be a buyout market team if they continue to play at the level they're playing.
Hell yeah.
Which is fucking crazy. That's never been us.
But yeah, I think the separator for me between Ayton and Bam, even though Bam is a better defensive player, is I can get more out of Ayton on a lower usage and build my team around that, where I think Bam's more of a touches guy and he likes to facilitate the ball. He likes to do his Al Horford. He likes to be a handoff merchant, put it straight together, some dribble moves and all that kind of stuff. Not saying that is something I don't want on this team, because if Bam Adebayo was on this team, I would already be, like, reserving my championship parade spot wherever that parade's going to go down. This is, since we're only speaking on two players, I think the lower usage with Ayton is a little bit more attractive to me.
Yeah, I've got a lot. I mean, it's a really phenomenal question. I mean, I think a lot of thoughts about it, because on one hand, you could make an argument. Any big that CP3 plays a lot with is going to almost have this, like, maybe look better than they really is. But then, like, you watch DeAndre Ayton play. I don't know. DeAndre Ayton doesn't need Chris Paul to be a good offensive player, and you saw that against the Pelicans in the playoffs. You saw that in a couple games.
Chris Paul missed, like, the first 15 games of the season, basically. I mean, he missed like 10. I don't know how many he missed. He missed a bunch, and him and Booker, they were winning to this first seed. And yeah, I mean, I think when I look at Ayton, he's like the one guy where I'm like, oh, those non-Zion units, y'all are in trouble. Because the Zion units, no matter who you put out there, like, they're going to be fine, right? And I think if you run a big pick and roll with Zion and Ayton, it's game over. He had Jackson as a lob threat, but Jackson's not aware enough in space on how to run a proper pick and roll oftentimes in the way that Ayton is. You can't just, like, toss the ball down to Jackson if he has a small on him, and Jackson's going to, like, rise up and make it, small or big. Jackson's just not going to score in that fashion. But I think with the non...
Yeah. No, I know the question was kind of in a vacuum, but the point you just made about how the Zion lamps are going to be fine is kind of exactly why I think I would go with Bam. Is just because, I think the offense, the Zion offense is more sustainable than this defense deep in the playoffs against really good teams. And so that's why, I think Bam is the right choice for the Pelicans. Just because I'm not an offense with Zion and Bam. I'm not concerned about the offense not doing it, because Zion's proven time and time again he can do it. And so, but I think Bam would round this team defensively and just take it to another level. Aiton's been really good this year, and you're right. I mean, the contract is a lot of money, but so far he's proving that he's worth it.
The other thing Ayton does is he rebounds better.
True.
So
Definitely
that's the only thing. And he can
critical.
be a I mean, he's really good on the offensive glass either, and but when he chooses to be a monster on the offensive glass, it's a different story. Yeah, I mean, really good question. I don't think there's a wrong answer because both of them are phenomenal players.
Yeah.
And I will admit I have done a 180 on Aiden's fit on this team. I was not about it, totally with it, because like if a guy like if you had Brandon Ingram and Aiden pick and rolls or CJ and Aiden pick and rolls, they would be murder and money every single time. And that's what I'm thinking about. When I see his fit and you add Zion to that mix, it's big trouble. I just don't think any team
Zion
would have it.
Yeah, Zion Ayton pick and rolls and Zion throwing lobs to Ayton.
Can you imagine? No team would have an answer for that combination. And I think the defense, you could layer in the wings however you wanted to make the defense work. Any way you wanted to. Yeah. Good question. Really, really good question. We've hit the hour mark, and I think we've covered a lot of stuff. Hopefully, we can continue to talk about how the Pelicans are winning after this Utah stint. Hopefully, we get Brandon Ingram back soon too. Herb Jones coming back. Looking forward to this trip. But I think we're gonna call it here. Do a quick shout out to our friends at DraftKings who sponsor this podcast. So if you haven't downloaded the DraftKings app, please download DraftKings Sportsbook. You can put $5 on any NBA money line and win up to $150 in free bets. You use the promo code BOOT, BOOT. Let me get this promo code up on our screen. I don't know how we do it, but anyways, use the promo code BOOT. There we go. It's on our screen. Mason with the magic here. And that's if you place a $5 bet on any NBA money line, you get $150 in free bets. Minimum age and eligibility restrictions apply. You must be 21 older to do this. If you or anyone you know has any gambling issues, problems, please call 1-800-GAMBLER. So appreciate it. Thanks, y'all.
I guess.